It was supposed to be an ordinary family dinner. I had cooked my special lamb roast, the one my daughter used to beg me for when she was a child. I thought it might bring back those warm, happy memories we shared. But instead, I found myself standing outside in the cold night air, holding my old coat, my daughter's voice still echoing in my ears. "Dad, you need to leave, now." Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Her husband's smirk burned into my mind. And all I could think was, what did he say to her? What could make my own child send me away like a stranger? My name is Robert Hill. I'm 72 years old. A retired school teacher. I've lived in the same little town my whole life. After my wife passed away 10 years ago, my daughter Emily became my only real family. She was my reason to wake up every morning, my pride and joy. I'd worked double shifts, skipped meals, and sold my own wedding ring just to make sure she could go to college without debt. I believed, that our bond was unbreakable. But that night proved how fragile love can feel when betrayal slips in through the back door. It started with a phone call earlier that week. Emily's voice was sweet but rushed. "Dad, can you come over Sunday night? We're having a little dinner, and I'd love for you to be here." I didn't hesitate. I even polished my old shoes, pressed my best shirt. I wanted to look presentable, respectable, for my daughter's husband, Mark, who never seemed entirely comfortable around me. When I arrived, the house smelled of garlic bread and rosemary. Emily greeted me with a hug, though it felt a little too quick, like she was distracted. Mark gave me a handshake, firm but cold. During dinner, I tried to keep the conversation light. I shared a few old stories about Emily as a little girl, how she once tried to bake cookies but forgot the sugar. She laughed politely, but Mark's jaw tightened. Then, as I took a sip of water, I noticed something. Mark leaning toward Emily, his hand brushing her knee under the table, his lips close to her ear. He whispered something. Just a few words. I couldn't hear them, but I saw her expression change instantly from mild amusement to sudden anger. Emily put her fork down. She stared at me for a long moment, then said quietly but firmly, "Dad, you should go." At first, I thought she was joking. Go? Why? Did I say something wrong? I asked, my voice trembling. She wouldn't answer. Mark leaned back, folding his arms, that faint, smug smile never leaving his face. "Just please, go." I felt the blood drain from my face. I stood, my knees shaky, my heart pounding in my chest. She didn't walk me to the door. She didn't hug me goodbye. She just sat there, eyes fixed on her plate. As I stepped into the night, the winter wind biting my skin, I promised myself I would find out what he whispered. And when I did, nothing between us would ever be the same. What could a husband say in a single whisper to make a daughter turn on her father? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. Her words echoed in my ears long after the front door slammed shut. I sat on the cold porch steps, the night air biting into my skin, but the chill inside my heart was far worse. I couldn't understand what had just happened. Only an hour ago, we had been laughing over dinner. I had even brought Emily her favorite dessert, apple pie with extra cinnamon. And now, I was on the street, my own daughter refusing to even look at me. I walked slowly toward the small motel down the road. My knees ached with each step, but the pain in my chest drowned out everything else. The streetlights seemed dimmer that night. I checked into a modest room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall. My mind kept replaying the moment her husband leaning in, whispering something, and then Emily's face hardening like stone. What had he told her? Why had she believed him without even asking me? The next morning, I decided I couldn't live in confusion. I called Emily, my voice trembling. "Sweetheart, can we talk? Please, just tell me what's going on." There was silence for a long moment before she replied, "Dad, I don't want to talk about it. You've hurt me enough." And then click. Hurt her? How? The ache in my heart grew heavier. I went into town, sat in the corner booth of an old cafe, and stared at my untouched coffee. Then, unexpectedly, I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was Margaret, Emily's neighbor. She hesitated before sitting across from me. "Harold, I probably shouldn't say this, but I think you deserve to know," she began softly. "Last week, Emily's husband told her that you've been planning to sell her childhood home without telling her." My jaw tightened. "That's a lie. I would never." "I know," Margaret whispered, "but he said he found proof. Some papers." I realized then that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was betrayal, planted like poison between me and my only daughter. And I decided I wasn't going to let it end this way. I stood there for what felt like hours, my bag in one hand, the other gripping the porch railing as if it were the only thing keeping me upright. The cold night air bit at my skin, but inside, it was colder. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. The friends I once had were either gone or too frail themselves. My brother passed years ago. My world had shrunk down to my children, and now even that was gone. A neighbor across the street peeked through her curtains. I pretended not to notice. The humiliation burned deeper than the cold. I took a slow breath and began to walk. My legs ached with every step, my heart heavier with each footfall on the empty sidewalk. By the time I reached the bus stop, my mind was replaying every moment from the past year. The rides to school, the nights I stayed awake, worrying about bills so they wouldn't have to, the meals I skipped so they could eat more. Did they forget all that? Or did it never matter? The bus finally came, its headlights cutting through the mist. The driver gave me a puzzled look when I asked for a ticket to the old town 30 miles away. It was where my late wife and I once lived, before we sold everything to help our children buy their dream house. As I sat in the back, the city lights faded behind me. The darkness of the countryside felt both suffocating and comforting. I closed my eyes, thinking of her, my wife, wishing she was here to tell me what to do, wishing she could hold my hand one more time. The bus rattled on, and so did my thoughts. I didn't know what awaited me in the old town, but I knew one thing for certain. If my children thought they could discard me like an old coat, they were wrong. When the gavel struck for the final time, the courtroom echoed with silence. My daughter stood there, her face pale, her hands shaking. The judge's voice cut through the air like a blade. The property transfer is void. The defendant retains full ownership of the country house and vehicle. I looked straight into her eyes. For a moment, I saw the little girl who once clung to my hand, afraid of the dark. But then the memory faded, replaced by the woman who had tried to sell everything I had worked for without a second thought. Outside, the cold wind bit my cheeks, but my heart felt strangely warm. My lawyer, a kind young man, smiled. "Sir, you've secured not just your home, but your peace. She can't touch you now." A week later, I received a letter. It wasn't an apology, just a plea. My daughter wrote, "Dad, we're broke. Please, just give us the house for a few months until we figure things out." I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and locked it in the drawer. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Christmas came. I decorated the house alone, hung the lights, and lit the fireplace. Snow fell gently outside, and for the first time in years, the place felt alive, not because of who was in it, but because of the peace it held. I sat by the fire, holding a mug of tea, staring at the glow. My daughter had chosen greed over love. Now she had neither. The world has a way of teaching its lessons. Parents are not burdens, they are blessings. And sometimes the cruelest punishment for those who forget that is to live without them.